Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world. Today's show is going to be an exciting one. My guest is the first time ever we're getting someone from across the pond, far beyond what you can think of. This is Mr. Adrian, and he is in Australia. Adrian, how you doing? Welcome to the BNS podcast.
Thank you for having me, Ike. It's a pleasure.
Good. Let's talk some more. Tell us where you're located, where you are, what part of Australia, how's the weather over there?
Yeah, the South Australia. So I think if people were familiar with Sydney, then they would know just about where I'm from. I'm on the south coast, and I live in a little town. It's called Wollongong. Wollongong is about an hour south of Sydney, and it's on the coast. So it's a beautiful coastal region. We're here in the summertime, although at the moment it's been raining for almost a week, and you would think that it'd be winter in any other time of the year for sure.
Oh wow, you're getting rain. That's serious stuff. Okay, good. So, Adrian, tell us a bit about your background. What do you do? Let our audience get a feel of who you are as a person, and then we can dabble into our topic today, which is unlocking potential.
Yeah, awesome. Well, look, I often describe myself as a business guy who likes to help people. So I've been in business for just over 20 years, and throughout that time, I have always been interested in personal development and self-development. And along the way of owning businesses and running businesses and dealing with the throes of life and marriage and children and the ups and downs of all of those things, I've turned to some mentoring. In 2010, 11, I started to sort of mentor people just for free, just to help people out and to give them some sort of guidance in business and leadership and marketing and all those sorts of things. And then eventually started to work my way into doing that more of a part-time business on the side of my my business ventures that I was going through. So it started off with marketing and business and mentoring. And then I quickly realized that a lot of people really needed help with their emotions, with their mindset, with their motivation, with just keeping them on track and keeping them accountable. And that led me to further discoveries and modalities and things that I wanted to learn for myself. And I just started to impart that on others. So now in and around my business adventures, I do podcasting and I do one-on-one mentoring. I run group trainings. I do in-room workshops and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I've got a busy life.
Well, I was going to say you're a busy man. I thought I was busy. I thought I was busy, man. Such a lot going on. But that's a good stuff. I'm glad that you actually found time to give back, mentor people, inspire them, help people work with their mindsets. Because I know that's a big issue in today's world. Our mindsets will determine how we actually progress or don't progress, right? So my question, my philosophy is no failure, no success, right? You gotta fail in something to actually enjoy the success of it when you actually overcome it. It's like people say no joy, no pain, no pain, no joy, right? What's your story? Over 25 years or 21 years of doing this, you must have had some pretty low times in your own personal life. Can you share those low times and how were you able to bounce back from them?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Where do we start? There's lots of highs and lots of lows. I think to touch on what you just said, I think it goes without saying that there are always good times and there are bad times. There are always seasons in life which you need to be working hard and you need to be grinding it out and sort of pushing through tough times, and in order to reap the rewards of your hard work. So I think it goes without saying that it would be unreasonable to expect that life would just go on this trajectory of just up and up and up and everything's going to be rosy and it's going to be fine. You know, I think the way that I look at life is that there are always life lessons. So whenever there's an event or there's a situation or there's a circumstance that I'm going through, I used to think way back when, like, why is this happening to me? Like, what have I done in order to deserve this? And, what's going on in my life? What have I done wrong? And now I think about it in this last sort of at least 15 years or so or more is what is the lesson that I need to learn? And what is life teaching me in this moment? Where am I going wrong in terms of what path I'm on, and how do I need to course correct in order to get to the place that I want to be? There's obviously something that I'm not quite in alignment with, or maybe I'm congruent with, and there's something here that I need to discover. And it's in that mindset of wanting to figure it out. You know, there's a part of life where you just need to live and let live and accept things for the way they are. But my mind is very curious to discover exactly what is going on that I need to figure out in order to prevent this, or at least alleviate it from happening to the degree or the magnitude that it's happened so far and going forward. So to go on to tough times, when I think about tough times in business, you know, I remember one of the first bigger businesses that I had bought back in my mid-20s, and it was a real estate business. Up until that point, I'd been self-employed for about 6 or 7 years, but I'd worked in different industries, and it was just me and no office or any team or anything like that. But the moment I went into a big business, I had this grand idea of owning a real estate office, building a big practice, and, you know, having 10, 15, 20 salespeople and all that kind of stuff. So I got into this business where I thought things were going to be magnificent. And I was writing down my goals. I had my vision board, only to realize in the next 6 months that I would be nearly 4 weeks from going broke. I had very little running costs in the business. I had to use my own savings to pay for wages. I really had this moment of complete and utter failure as a man, failure as a provider, failure as a father, failure as a person who said they were going to do something, and then it just, I've got egg in my face. And as far as society is concerned, I'm going to be looked upon as an idiot, as someone who didn't know what they were doing. So there was shame, there was guilt, there was all of this stuff riddled within my body that was like, why did I do this? Like a lot of regret, a lot of dissatisfaction with what the decision that I've made. Because he doesn't really hold back in the way that he speaks. You know, he kind of just like straight to the point. And in that moment, it got me out of feeling sorry for myself, and it got me into a mindset of wanting to figure things out. At that time, like this was like 2005, 6, 7, you know, that's around that period of time. So at that time, I got back into prospecting, cold calling. I had to cut all the fat out of the business and really sort of live very lean. At that time, I had just like one income, and all of my income was going back into the business, and just, you know, did whatever it took to manage that process, right? Mm-hmm. And then I discovered another mentor who was using online marketing in order to project himself to the public place as an expert, as a leader in his field, and he was using video marketing. So mind you, back then, there was no real like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. Right. YouTube, and we didn't have these beautiful cameras that had high definition or, you know, anything like that. So I went down to a hi-fi store. I bought, it was called a Sony Bloggie, and this thing was like the size of just a little Nokia phone. Do you remember the Nokia phones back in the day? They were just like this little tiny little brick, you know. So I bought this Sony Bloggie and I set it up, and it had this automatic zoom on there. So I'm trying to talk and do blogs and things like that. And because I'm using my hands, this thing's like just sort of going in and out and zooming and refocusing. And anyway, I got this first video out about the market, about real estate, about buying property and things like that. And I was holding it the wrong way. I had it like in portrait and not landscape and all these sorts of things. And I was fearful of putting myself out there, thinking that I'm just going to look like an idiot again, and people are going to laugh at me and ridicule me and shame me and all that kind of stuff. But that was the start of me getting myself into an online business and creating an identity around my personality and around being in real estate. And it got me known in the industry as someone who was able to help people without asking for business. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of like many moments where fast forward a few years later, everything was back on track again. And it was actually the catalyst for me to getting into coaching, because over the next sort of several years, people were asking me more about video marketing and branding than they were about real estate. So it was almost like this, natural projection into into coaching and things like that. So again, it's the whole adage of like, one door closes and another opens. But yeah, that's a period in my life that always sticks with me as a moment that, particularly in business, where I really had to dig very deep and find the reason and the purpose and the intestinal fortitude to push through when everything seemed like at that moment the best and easiest option was to quit.
Were there any steps you say you had to apply certain steps to get out of that mess?
Look, I think the steps that, if I was to really analyze the steps that I took, the first step was really the decision that I was going to metaphorically burn the boats. There's no way that I was going to turn back from this moment, and quitting and failure was not an option, as esoteric and as cliche as that sounds.
Right.
The second step was to focus not on why this is happening and poor me and all those things, but focus on what can I do from this point on in order to move myself closer to the goal that I want to achieve. Right. So let's break that down. This is the whole sort of Stephen Covey begin with the end in mind type of thing. So, if I want to get out of this mess, which was in debt, having no listings and no sales and no income coming in, to listings and sales and income and out of debt and having a flourishing business, then what would I need to do from that point? And then reverse engineering the whole kind of like, well, let's find someone who's doing really well in this industry. And that's how I found the mentor who was using real estate and marketing and videos in order to get himself out there to become an expert in his field. And then, as you would know, like, the doors sort of open up the moment you open yourself into a new vibration or a new level of alignment with those sorts of people. Right. All of a sudden, this whole world starts to open up, and I found mentors like Brendan Burchard and all of these people that are into online marketing and expert positioning. And so now I'm going to seminars and I'm going to workshops, and I'm kind of like, my mind's a sponge, and I'm really like open to new ideas. And yeah, 100%. And then, of course, there's like the implementation. There's no good having a great idea if you're not going to implement it. So it's like putting yourself out there. And like I said, the moment I press upload onto YouTube to put this video out there, people in my hometown are going to ridicule me. They're going to think I'm an idiot. And I just hit upload anyway. And I was just thinking I was just going to have a barrage of negative comments, and I kind of put it out there to say, hey, listen, I've done this video. What do you think? And people come back and they go, hey, look, it's a good video. Your zoom's out of whack. You're holding the camera the wrong way. You're sort of sitting in this landscape portrait video with the black on the sides. And in those days, it was just like a square thing. So they're like, give me constructive feedback. So eventually they just gave me more courage to get out there. And now, much like yourself, I'm doing podcasts and videos and blogs and seminars and workshops. It's nothing for me to do 100 videos a year. So whereas that point I was kind of like, frightened of doing just one. That would be the steps.
Let's talk about frightened, then we'll take a break and we'll come back. The last word you used was frightened. Would you say, in your own opinion, that fear and self-doubt are the same thing?
I think they're not the same, but I think that they are aligned. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that they're not. They're not the same thing. I honestly believe that sometimes fear is mostly built up based on the things in our environments, things around us, things that the eyes can see. But self-doubt is something inside. It's that little voice that says to you, and it could have happened when you were a child, when they said, you're no good. Or your teacher in school said, you're just a total waste of space, right? So those voices stay there. And those are the voices that picture you and say, hey, you can't do it. You're a total waste of space. It's two different things than fear. Yeah. Fear is like, you see what's around you, and you're like, I can't launch out into the deep, right? That's the environment around you. But
I would agree with that. So I think that fear can be something that you can perceive, but it's not necessarily true.
That's
it's like when you go out into the pitch black darkness, and because there's no light there, you can't see anything. So your mind can perceive that there could be imminent danger, but it's actually not there. As soon as you flick on the lights, you're like, oh, I'm safe. Everything's fine, right? When it comes to self-doubt, I think there's an absolute direct link to the opinion that you have of yourself based on an experience that you had typically when you were younger. And then your mind does this thing where it says, I've got this feeling of feeling self-doubt, not enough, not good enough, shame, guilt, worry, whatever it may be. This is linked to a memory of the past, and that experience comes up in the mind as a memory. It's linked, then it sinks in with the emotion. The mind takes you back to the filing system where it says, I'm feeling anxious about this situation. Let's go and align yourself with the anxious file, and we'll pull out a memory and an experience, and it relives that moment. And we've tied that back to a past experience. Like you said, that time where you got scolded by your dad for doing the wrong thing and you felt like you were this big in that moment, or that time where you got picked on at school, or and you felt like you were embarrassed or shamed or ridiculed or judged or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's 100% true in my experience and what I live through and also teach, for sure.
Wonderful. We're going to take a break, and when we come back from that, we're going to look at how would I put it? We're going to look at what we just discussed when it comes to the mindset, and how do we now work on our mindset as a coach. How would you work on the people that come to you? How would you work on their mindset to make sure that when they have those thoughts, because they're always going to have those thoughts, right? Even you have those thoughts. I have those thoughts sometimes where you feel like you're an imposter, right? So that imposter syndrome says to you, you don't belong in this room. You don't belong on this table. You don't belong in this company, right? You're a CEO, but you're wondering, really? What am I really doing here, right? So all those things happen. The question now is, how does Adrian tell Ike or anybody else he's working with, get rid of that mindset? We will have that conversation once we come back from our break. See you soon. Back to the podcast and the BNM podcast. My guest today is Adrian. Adrian is actually in Australia, so the time difference is huge. Thanks again, sir, for making out time for being there with us. We were talking about fear and self-doubt. And you shared some very powerful experiences. Whoever missed it, just jump back and catch it, and you'll find out what Adrian just said. The question now, Adrian, is, as a coach, how do you work with people to renew their minds, to actually get their mindsets correct and in line with them overcoming those challenges, overcoming those experiences for the success ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I definitely break it down into several components, and one of them is to understand your environment. And what I mean by environment is that there's an external environment, so the things outside of you. There's people, places, locations, friends, family, all those sorts of things. Right. There's your workplace. There's the places that you frequent, and all of that external, the things that you watch, anything that you can think of that's external from you. Then there's your internal environment. So these are the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that go on between your heart and your mind. Yeah. And when I ask people to do a kind of like self-check of the things on their external environment that you could say would be incongruent with how they want to live their life, they start to quickly realize that there are things within the people that they are involved with, the things that they watch, the kind of daily habits that they have, the food that they eat, the water that they ingest, like all of those sorts of things. There's a problem there. And so we need to identify what process of elimination we need to take in order to extrapolate the goodness out of that environment and move away from the things that are toxic. Make sense? And It's the same thing with your mind. So you're like, if I was to look at the emotions and the thoughts and the feelings that I'm thinking about on any one day, where would that sit in terms of, say, an emotional vibrational chart? Has everyone seen that sort of chart where it's kind of like a pyramid of emotions, and the lower emotions are like, worry, stress, fear, guilt, shame, apathy, all those sorts of things. And then the above the middle line is like, neutrality and optimism and love and bliss and enlightenment and all those sorts of things. So whereabouts do you sit on that scale? Most people find like that they're sitting on that lower end of the scale.
On the lower end of the scale.
Really obvious. If you're sitting in a world of stress and worry and fear and doubt and shame and guilt, your body's eating itself from the inside out. So the next step that I would go to is to kind of think about the things that are most important to you. And most people will know this as values, but not just like, what's my value? And my value is honesty, it's integrity, it's, hard work or whatever it may be, love, just all of these cliche sort of things. No, hang on a second. Let's derive a value out of everything that you do, the every domain of life. So what do you value in health? What do you value? If you're saying health is the number one value, well, what do you value in health? So for example, you might value vitality. You might value feeling alive and alert and exuberance with energy. So, okay, well, you value energy, you value life, you value excitement. I value hard work. Well, what is it about hard work or earning an income, being an entrepreneur? What is it you value about that? Well, I value being in control of the decisions of my life because I'm the author of my own story, So, okay, now when we get to that juicy part, we start to understand what really lights you up, what really makes you come alive. And then we can kind of put those values into a hierarchy and say, well, what's most important to you in every domain of life? Now we move on to the next phase, which is to live congruently with those values, live in alignment with those values. So then when you start to apply that to your work and your family and your relationships and your friends and the things that you do around your health and your environment, now it's like, if it's not a yes, it's a no. If this is not in alignment with my values, then it's out of my life. Right. I'm not doing it anymore. So when you start to go for job opportunities, or you start to look at business opportunities or investments, or you start to look at the things that you want to do for your health. So you might say, well, Ike's going to go and ride a bike and he's going to play basketball or whatever it is. And then you realize that you don't really get that much enjoyment out of it. But the moment start to do yoga or swimming or some sort of walks by the beach or whatever it is. So that's in alignment with your values. You're going to do that more often than you are going to do something that grinds against the grain, goes against the grain. Does that make sense?
Right.
So then I go deeper into this, because then one of the key things, like, is, as you would appreciate, is the most important relationship you have is the relationship you have with yourself. And that's the thing is that determines every other relationship around you. And outside of your work and things like that, the person that you are with mostly is yourself. And then secondly, there's a partner, or there's someone that you want to be aligned with. And whether you're single or whether you're with someone or whether you're in a marriage or whether you're just dating, it doesn't really matter. But getting to understand yourself, I go deeper into, like, what are your love languages, right? As basic and as sort of like a really like run through over the years. Like, the 5 Love Languages is a 30-year-old book that everyone should know about. If you don't, you should go and read it. But it's a very basic fundamental step to understanding yourself. And then you understand your partner. You understand, like, what is that lights you up. Now I can serve you in your love language, and you can serve me in my love language, not I'm serving you in my love language, right? So, which is where most relationships come unstuck. Then there's attachment styles, and then there's childhood wounds, and there's all these sorts of things around discovering parts of yourself that need to be tweaked and rectified and just sort of, put back together, pulled apart and put back together in such a way that there is now harmony within your body, right? The last step is to now, how do I integrate? How do I honor these values? How do I honor this new version of myself that I've created, right? In this moment, we have a decision that we can make, which is to recreate or create the perfect version of ourselves. And we can step into that in this very moment. That old version of Ike, that old version of Adrian doesn't have to exist. It can die every day to the new version that I want to create and I want to become, and I want to project out into the world, right? So now, how do we integrate our lives with that version? How do we honor that version? Because if that version doesn't drink and doesn't smoke and goes to the gym all the time and goes to bed on time and listens to self-help books and great podcasts like this and really has a value of growth and being the best version of themselves they possibly could be, and loves life and has a zest for adventure and loves to honor their woman or their man, and all those sorts of things. Like, how do you live congruently? Wants to be the best father or the best mother, wants to be calm and collected, like all of those sorts of things, right? So how do I step into that version of myself and apply it to every day of my life? Because eventually that's the new kind of DNA. That's the new type of structure that I want to create. That's the cells that I want to reproduce within my system. I want to die off all of these old bad cells, these bad replicas, these bad photocopies. I want to put a new skin. I want to put a new design around this, a new look and feel around how I carry myself through my life. And then the natural output of all of that is that your life would significantly change. And the best part about this is that, like, as a coach, I don't want to be with you, Ike, for months and years on end, and you be the mooring line. Like, I'm the mooring line to your success. Without me, you're nothing, right? I want to teach you all of the tools and attributes and the things that you need to know to be the best version of yourself, and then go implement that into your life. And you don't need me anymore. Right. I want to I want to serve you to the degree that it serves me. And then I want to part ways. I want to unemploy myself from you. It sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive for a coach, but I don't want to be here every day with you and my, like metaphorically speaking, you're on my lounge and we're talking things out and you never change. I don't have any success as a coach like that, I know that we don't have to spend years. We can spend weeks and we're done.
Wonderful, Adrian. Wow. This is good stuff. We've got a few minutes to wrap up this podcast, but definitely this is not your last time. I want to bring you back again.
That's awesome. I'd be happy to come back.
Yeah, definitely. Let's end with this question. From your perspective, how would you define success?
Success is living congruently to your values and your belief systems that serve you to the highest purpose. So if I was to speak from my own perspective, the way that I can serve myself is by serving others. So when I start to think about success and maybe purpose, if I align those two together, it would be utilizing the gifts that I have and discovering the best parts of myself and how I can apply that to the things that I'm really good at. So what can I create out of that, whether it be a business, a course, a program, anything like that. This is just projecting from my perspective, right? And then how can I serve that to others to make the greatest impact, which has the ripple effect, which leaves the world a better place than what I found it. So that, to me, if you can apply that formula to whatever you do in life, whether you're serving your husband or your wife or your friends or family or your children, it could be applied to any area of your life. That, to me, would be success.
Wow. In a nutshell, what you just said to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're here to serve.
I believe so. I believe that we have a set of gifts and unique talents, and it would be a disservice to the world for us to keep that a secret.
That's correct.
So I know not everyone wants to be a #1 sports star, or they don't want to be an author, they don't want to be a coach or host a podcast or do anything like that. That is totally fine. But if you have a gift and you don't share it with anyone to better themselves, I feel like
that's a waste.
That would be the complete disservice to humanity, and that gift has been given to you for no reason. You know, it's kind of like it's a unutilized gift that now has to be shared with someone else. And I feel the same way about ideas and businesses and all those sorts of things. You know, if the universe downloads an idea to me and I don't act upon it, the universe always rewards action. And if I don't do anything about it, then it's just going to go and give it to Ike, and Ike's going to have the balls to go and do it. And then he's going to go and do it and be a success about it. And then I'm going to sit back and go, I had that idea, you know, I never did anything with it. But that's not how the world works. You know, the world's like, you know, an idea is only as good as its implementation. If you don't act on it, then you know, the world needs servitude. The world needs to help each other out. And, you know, we are living in a time where I think pretty soon we're going to get to a point where if we don't start helping each other and serving each other to the highest good, then, you know, the onslaught of that is, you know, chaos and destruction. And, you know, I don't think we'll get there, but I think that that's where we are at the moment.
I completely agree with you. Biblically, from the biblical perspective, what you just gave was a typical story of the talents that were given to some servants, and others used their talents well, and one went and hid his own talents. And so when the master came back, he said to the master, what the master said to him, what did you do with your talent? He said, I know you're a very mean guy, and so I just had to hide my talent. Well, guess what? He took the guy's talent, he gave it to others who had more talents and multiplied theirs, and threw the guy into cell or into prison or something like that. So at the end of the day, the moral of the story is that when the gifts have been given to us, like you just said, we should implement and use them for the better good of ourselves and others around us. Adrian, thank you so much for your time. You and I can go on, but I know my team is saying to me, we've reached our mark, but I'll definitely bring you back.
Beautiful.
I'm going to end with two things. One, something that just came to mind as you were talking. First one is look at the camera and tell your 25-year-old self. I want to believe you're older than that, Adrian. Sorry, man. Your 25-year-old self, everything's going to be okay. At that time, there was a lot of fretting, worrying, and concern. Looking back now, you're like, whoa, what was I worried about? What would you tell your 25-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, that's such a good question. You know what? In reality, I would say to my 25-year-old self, when you think it's the end, it's the beginning. Like, it's just, you've got time. There's more to life than what you think and what you hold dear, and it changes as life changes, your paradigm of the world changes. And so as long as you keep moving forward, it doesn't matter how far you zig and zag in each and every direction. If you're moving towards your goal, eventually, like if the goal that you want to reach is here and you zig and zag and whatever, and then you course correct, now you're right here. Whereas if you stay still, you're not going to achieve anything. I think reality is my 25-year-old self would have said, you don't know what you're talking about. I know everything. And I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want anyway. You know, so let's just be real.
That's right, Adrian. Wow, thank you so much, sir, for your time. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do, I don't know who my next guest is, right? But I saw this somewhere, and I think I'm going to use it moving forward. Any question you want to, just ask the question, and I will put that question to the next guest, whoever he or she is.
Oh my God, I've seen this before.
Yeah. I saw it somewhere, and I thought it was wonderful. So I'm going to start doing it. Any questions? When they come in.
You interview, a lot of successful people. I would love to know at the very lowest of low moments, what was the thought, the thing that made them flick the switch to say, "And this moment, I'm going to turn my life around." I want to know what that thought was, or what that influence was. Was it someone, something, a divine intervention? Like, what was that particular moment?
Okay, so that's the question for the next guest. Whoever the guest is, they'll answer that question. Adrian, awesome. Thank you again, buddy. Thanks for making out time. I look forward to seeing you. Please, if you don't follow us, start following us on the BNM podcast. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Just click the notification button, and we promise you that if you continue to support us, we'll continue to bring great guys like Adrian from Australia, Japan, anywhere in the US, Africa, just to speak to you and inspire you every Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My brother, my friend, nice meeting you, and thanks for everything. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure.
Famous 3 words. Thanks, sir. In our famous 3 words, love, peace, and more grace. Catch you guys on the other end.